Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bitwig Studio and Music Production. This is lesson number 9, and in this lesson, we're going to be talking about using plugins and specifically how to download plugins, how to properly install them. And in this particular video, we'll be talking about Vamp plugins and VST plugins. VST stands for Virtual Studio Technology. It was invented quite a while ago by, I think, Steinberg, the people who make Cubase, and it's amazing just how far plugin technology has come in 20 or so years. So I thought I would just read the Wikipedia definition of what an audio plugin is, and then I can give you guys kind of a little bit more practical definition, and we'll go about downloading a couple plugins and bringing them into Bitwig. So an audio plugin in computer software is a plugin that can add or enhance audio-related functionality in a computer program, or in our case, a digital audio workstation. Such functionality may include digital signal processing or sound synthesis. Audio plugins usually provide their own user interface, which often contains GUI widgets. GUI there stands for Graphical User Interface, that can be used to control and visualize the plugin's audio parameters. Okay, that's good enough for me. So let's actually get into it in a practical manner. So if you didn't read the description for the last video where you're working in Sonic Visualizer, you might have opened up your Sonic Visualizer and been a little bit confused when you weren't able to really process the audio in that many ways. The reason for that is, much like Bitwig, Sonic Visualizer is a host application that has the ability to run plugins. In the case of Sonic Visualizer, these are referred to as Vamp plugins. So we can go over here and click on Vamp plugins. So Vamp is an audio processing plugin system for plugins that extract descriptive information from audio data, typically referred to as audio analysis plugins or audio feature extraction plugins. That is very different from what we're going to be using in a minute, which is VST plugins. But for now, if you have been following along with me and you've downloaded Sonic Visualizer, let's take a look at grabbing a couple of Vamp plugins and how to install them. So I can either go to download plugins or find links to download Vamp plugins here. So I'll click this one. And here there are tons and tons of plugins that you can grab to work with in Sonic Visualizer. There's going to be installation instructions at the bottom of the page, but I can just walk you through how to do it. So let's see, let's grab something. I have to use the ones for OS, but you guys could grab, if you're on Windows, you can grab other stuff. So let's see, maybe I'll take these guys right here, Match Vamp plugin. I already have them, so I don't want to download like a big set, but let's see if I can grab these. Cool, so I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Boom. I would encourage you guys to grab anything that's interesting to you. Definitely take the Queen Mary plugin set and also take the Vamp audio plugins, and you're going to want the Cordino as well. Really, a lot of these you're going to be able to find uses for. So I would almost encourage you to just grab all of them. They're probably going to, on the whole, take up just a few megabytes of space. So let's go into our downloads now. And we'll pull this out onto the desktop. And I should just be able to double click this and hopefully it will hold a file. Okay, very cool. So what I have here is a .cat and a .dylib file. And let's see what this document says here, or this README text. Nothing too important. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys where to navigate to install these Vamp plugins. So I'm going to navigate to my Macintosh HD. If you're on a PC, you should easily be able to find where your plugins are. If you can't, feel free to leave a comment and I'll tell you where to go. I think it might just be like library plugins, but I'm not 100%. I haven't worked on a PC in a number of years. So on my Mac though, when I get my Macintosh HD, if you don't have your HD, it's a very handy thing to have on the desktop. And you can use the Finder up here to search for Macintosh HD, and then you could obviously do show all in Finder, and then you can drag and drop it to your desktop. So for Macintosh HD, I'm going to go into Library, and then I'm going to go into Audio, and then from there I can go into Plugins. Okay, so we're going to see a whole host of options here. If you're working with Sonic Visualizer and you don't see a folder labeled Vamp, you actually are going to have to go in here and create a folder and name it Vamp, V-A-M-P. I don't remember now if it automatically will do this for you, so you might have to do it manually. Don't worry, it's not going to screw anything up if you mislabel it or anything like that, but just make sure you make a folder in your plugins and you call it V-A-M-P. So I'm going to click on that, and all you're going to have to do is drag and drop the cat and dylib files in here. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm probably going to have to replace the ones I already have, but that's fine. So I'll select both of them, drag, drop. Let's go ahead and replace, and just like that, my Vamp plugins are in there and they're working. So if I was to then open up Sonic Visualizer, I'd be able to use these Vamp plugins as easy as that. So now let's talk about what we're going to do and use with Bitwig, and I'm going to explain this a little bit differently now. So let me open up Bitwig and just explain a couple of things. Let's actually give ourselves some screen real estate here, so we just have our normal screen. So when you think about a digital audio workstation, the best way to think about it is as a container. Okay, Bitwig as itself is a container, and within that container, it can hold a ton of different devices. There are going to be built-in devices, and then there can be some devices that you can pull from other places. So for example, if I go to this first instrument track and I click the plus sign here, I can pull up some of Bitwig's built-in devices. So let's say I take the polysynth. Okay, I can play a couple of notes. Or chords or whatever. And the polysynth is unique to Bitwig, so it's built into this interface. If I was to open up a different digital audio application, something like Ableton Live or Logic, I wouldn't be able to have access to this polysynth. It's uniquely built into Bitwig, and all of these controls and this particular user interface is unique to this application. Likewise, if I load up an effect like the EQ2, this is also unique to Bitwig. However, these are very similar to plugins in that plugins could have the same function. So I could have a plugin that is a synthesizer, and that's similar to a polyphonic synthesizer that's analog, or that's modeled off of a real life analog synth, similar to what this polysynth device is. However, with that plugin, as long as the digital audio application or the DAW I'm using supports that plugin's format, I should be able to open that plugin in any digital audio workstation. Okay, things are going to vary though based on if the plugin is 32-bit versus 64-bit, and then specifically the plugin type, but we'll talk about all of that in just a minute. So to recap here, these are devices built into Bitwig that are unique to Bitwig. However, their functionality isn't necessarily super unique. So you're going to find in many digital audio workstations things like a delay. Okay, so a delay is going to be something you're going to find in a bunch of different digital audio workstations. They're all going to be a little bit different. They're going to have different user interfaces or GUIs, graphical user interfaces, but their functionality is all going to be relatively similar. Okay, plugins, on the other hand, are things that you're going to download from different locations, either by a plugin manufacturer, or you might be able to find some freeware as well. So plugins come in all shapes and sizes. And let's talk about a couple that I want you to grab first. for moving ahead here. One of these plugins, I'm not 100% sure if it works in Bitwig. It seems to be the one thing that I can't get to work in Bitwig, at least here on my Mac. This is an oscilloscope made by Bram at Smart Electronics. I'll definitely post a link to this in the description for this video, but head over to that, and then based on whatever operating system you're on, either Windows or Mac, go ahead and download it. The one thing to know about Bitwig right off the bat is that Bitwig only supports VST plugins right now. So that's kind of a killer for me, who, if I have the choice when I get a plugin of getting an audio unit version, the AU version, which is unique to Macintosh, or the VST, I almost always go with the audio unit version. But that's okay, because Bitwig has so many cool things built into it already. I'm not planning to dive into my plugin library left and right, at least not yet. So be sure to download the VST version. Okay, so for the Mac, that's going to be the top one here. And for Windows, by default, it's going to download a VST. So I'll click this, and I'm going to go ahead and save this file. The other one I want you to download, and again, I'll have a link to it in the description, is the Voxengo span. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and download the VST3 for Mac. Be careful that you don't scroll down here, because they actually will have other products, and the first time I downloaded the span, I accidentally downloaded something different, and it took me a long time to figure out what was exactly going on. So we're going to wait for these to finish. And you guys have probably already guessed how you're going to go about installing these VST plugins. It's basically exactly like what we just did before with our Vamp plugin, just that we're going to have to drop it into a different folder. So let's pull these guys out here. And some plugins will automatically install to your VST folder, so you won't even have to manually drag and drop them. Here's the exoscope here, and this is the VST plugin. This is the one that I'm having no luck with getting to open up in Bitwig, but we're going to try a little bit of a workaround to see if we can make it work. So what I'm going to do here, for the sake of this example, is I'm going to copy this, go into my Macintosh HD, go into my library, go into audio, go into plugins, go into VST, and from here I can, if I'm not being an idiot, why don't we just drag and drop it for ease? I'll click authenticate, type that in, and there it is. Now I'm going to try something different with this, so I'm actually going to copy this and paste onto the desktop, and I'll show you guys why in a minute I'm doing that. Let's see, did it actually paste? Here we go. Whenever you're getting that spinning beach ball of death, you know it's never a very good thing. Okay, here it is. Very cool. We're going to keep this for reference. And now let's go ahead and see if we can install the Voxengo span. And so this one, what I can do is I want the VST version. The VST3 is another type of plugin format, but for right now, let's only worry about this standard VST. And again, VST does stand for Virtual Studio Technology. So I'll right click it and select open. And in this case, it's actually going to go and install this for you automatically into your VST folder. So I already have this installed. I'm not going to do it again, but you guys be sure to run through that entire installation process. If you have any problems with it, please let me know. Let's clean everything up here on the desktop real quick that we don't need. The one thing I am going to do is go back into my plugins folder, and let's see if we can find the span, and I'm going to pull it out to the desktop. So let's see if we can find it in here. Here it is. So I'll right click it here and I will copy it and I will paste it out. Perfect. And what I'm actually going to do here is I've made this file called reference VST. I've already put 2 VSTs in here, and I'm going to drag and drop and move these guys into this folder as well. And I'll show you why in a second. So when you're working in Bitwig now, let's go ahead and delete this delay. If we go into our browser here, and again, like I mentioned in a previous video, let's go full screen. You can either just click the B button or you can open up the panel down here. Let's go into our configuration. By default, when you run this, it should automatically add the plugin location to where it is installed on your hard drive. But if it doesn't, you can always click add location, go to your Macintosh HD, your library, audio, assuming this shows up, and then plugins. So you could do it like that, click VST, click open, and then it will go through and scan your plugins. The other thing you can do is add custom locations. So now you see why I put those VSTs in that folder on my desktop. I'm gonna try to add this to my plugin library. So I'm gonna click add location, go to desktop, and select reference VST. I'm gonna click open, and you're gonna see it did it really fast, but it scanned through that folder there and checked to make sure all those plugins are going to be compatible. So now if I go back to my devices and presets, here we go. We have that folder I just put in, and for some reason, the exoscope plugin just doesn't work in Bitwig. I don't know why that is. If anybody's had any success with that, please let me know, because it just doesn't seem to work. Okay, so now what is the difference between this sort of wave symbol and this keyboard? Well, this orange symbol here, which is supposed to represent a waveform, indicates that this is an audio, this is an effect plugin. The ones with the keyboard are instrument plugins. So if I attempt to take my tall bass line instrument here and put it on an audio track, it's not going to work. It's going to automatically create a new instrument track, or at least it should. With Bitwig, it is a little bit different because we have this thing like referred to as hybrid tracks, but you'll notice that like I can't click the record button here because this is an audio track. And so it really would almost render it all useless unless I want to record in real time and not use MIDI data. So what would make more sense, I think, would be to make a specific instrument track. And now we'll drag this and pull it onto my instrument track instead. So now I can play notes from it, and I can record those notes in as opposed to just recording an audio. So instead I'd be able to record MIDI data. And we're going to talk all about this in a lot more detail in coming videos. But my point is to show you that if I want to take the span, I have the ability to drop that on both audio channels and onto instrument tracks as well. So audio tracks and instrument tracks, effects plugins will work on both the same. Okay, so that is going to do it for this video. I know that was kind of all over the place. Don't worry, when we get into Bitwig, all of this stuff is going to make sense to you. Don't worry about any of these parameters. But for now, I do want you guys to go online and at the very least install the Span plugin. Word to the wise, there are tons and tons of plugins out there, and there are tons and tons of terrific free plugins out there. Let me just warn you though now, if you're going to start downloading plugins and wanting to work with them, my recommendation would be the second after you download it and install it, open up Bitwig and drop that plugin into either an instrument track, if it's an instrument, or onto an audio or an instrument track if it's going to be some kind of effect, and just really see if you're planning to use the plugin, because there's so many out there. Even me, I have like a collection of a lot of free plugins that I just never really use. And so they're just taking up space. So learn from my mistakes, and I would almost recommend avoiding downloading any plugins, additional plugins apart from that span plugin I just showed you, and you can try working with the exoscope as well, until we get to that stage in our journey here together. So again, thank you guys for watching, and you'll hear from me again in the next lesson.